So, cut the music, let's get straight on to it then. So, hair is an interesting thing to draw. It's not necessarily complex well, actually, it's kind of complex, I shouldn't be saying that, but it's a very interesting thing to draw. For now, let's talk about some methods and things you can do to draw hair. So, the most obvious example is to, not really most obvious, but the most rudimentary style is to block it in, quote unquote. Now, the way it works is that it's similar to what an anime looks like. The hair, instead of individual strands, it's just big chunks or large chunks where the hair would be. If we're talking about an animeistic style, that's a new word, we need three main colors, which is the hair color, the darks, and the highlights. So the hair color generally is the general color of the hair. The dark area is the dark areas of the hair, preferably near the back of the head, for example, or other places. Basically areas where the light won't hit the hair. And then we need the highlights, which usually when they're drawn are individual tiny little strands of light that show both the directionality of the hair and where the light is hitting the head. Although usually it's positioned like a sort of ring around the head. I don't really know, but that's what people do, I guess. And if you want to get a bit complex, you could add some midtones here and there, just cause why not? Now, this block-it-in method isn't always used in anime. For example, sculptures. If you're drawing a sculpture, you'll notice you can't sculpt individual hairs. Instead, they'll just sculpt it in a big, bulky, sort of big chunk, if you may. If you look at any sculpture or like a drawing of a, actually no, just look at any sculpture or drawing of like a bust or someone's head cast in stone, instead of someone with actual individual hairs, you'll notice the hairs do actually look more like big chunks instead of actual strands of hair. Now, obviously, if you're painting, although I can't really speak for sure because I've never painted hair before in my life, you might want to use a paintbrush with a lot more bristles that are a lot more separated and far apart. For example, Krita, the software I use, and I'm pretty sure you can find some brushes on Photoshop as well, but Krita has two brushes, or mainly I use 2 brushes, but it does have a special brush specified for drawing strands of hair. Now this brush may be good for drawing individual strands of hair, but if you want to just draw a big general area of hair, try using a brush that's just a bit more beefy, like this brush over here. It still has similar properties to the other brush in that the strands are separated, but they are a lot more clumped together, and this is a more standard brush. A very important thing to know is that when using a brush or a pencil or any other sort of directional medium is that when your strokes have to be directional. When you draw, your strokes have to be directional, otherwise it'll look like the hair is going all over the place because the lines represent the direction of the hair, and yada yada yada. Now this isn't that important when you're doing the block it in method because it's just going to be a big block and there's not going to be any strands, but if you are representing the strands, make sure that the direction of your brush goes in the right direction, in the same direction as the hair you're drawing, otherwise it'll look a bit conflicting. Now the same methods apply with the block it in method, which is that you just want to mark out the highlights, mark out any light areas, but it is going to be a little more difficult because you do have to be a little more detailed, and personally I haven't drawn a lot of hair, so there's that too. The best way to draw hair with a pencil is to build it up gradually and to slowly, I guess, add value and depth to the hair by just hatching it in a single direction over and over again, and eventually it'll build up, the hair will look more three-dimensional, and just don't make it solid black, and you should have some decent texture or hair-like texture in there. If you want to make an area darker versus an area that's lighter, just hatch it in a few more times, but don't change the direction too much, otherwise it'll look a bit messy. Although you can, depending on the situation, but yeah. And besides that, the final thing you really need to worry about is just the general positioning of where the hair is on the head, which I don't think needs to be explained too much, but yeah. Anyways, that is how I draw hair.